Is pain more in the brain or in the body?
Well, it's both. The same circuits in the brain that cause emotional pain are involved in processing physical pain. If your brain isn't healthy, you're much more likely to suffer with pain.
Should people, when they're experiencing pain, take painkillers or even antidepressants, or are those drugs just masking the real source of pain?
They looked at 192 studies on 17,000 people, looking at what supplements actually helped for depression. Saffron was by far the number one. SAMe was number two. But when you added zinc and curcumin to saffron or to antidepressants, they were much more effective. 340 million prescriptions last year for antidepressants, and no one was looking at the brain. If we started looking, the whole field would begin to fall apart. 25% of the adult population on psychiatric drugs. That's a huge win for a $500 billion industry. If I'm right, and I'm right, those are the people that are going to lose.
As a brain health expert, what's your take on nicotine lip pouches like Zins?
I hate it. It's like, no, because it's addictive.
What do you recommend for migraines?
First thing.
Dr. Daniel Amen, welcome to the show. How you doing?
So great to see you again, Max.
Is this our first time recording in person? I feel like whenever we do it, it's like remote because you're out there in wherever you are. New York, Newport
Beach.
There you go. Well, I'm excited to have you in to celebrate your new book, Change Your Brain, Change Your Pain. Super compelling topic, a topic that I'm very interested in because I just got over 10 years of chronic pain, chronic low back pain. So let's just dive right in. Is pain more in the brain or in the body?
Well, it's both. But people ignore the brain, even though pain ultimately comes to live and stay in the circuits in your brain. And one of the reasons I wrote the book is I was really curious why Cymbalta, a really good antidepressant, is also FDA approved for chronic pain. And why SAMe, the supplement, S-adenosylmethionine, helps with depression, but also arthritis. And it's like, why is that? It's because the same circuits in the brain that cause emotional pain are involved in processing physical pain. And so if your brain isn't healthy, you're much more likely to suffer with pain. And if you have repressed emotions, especially rage, you're much more likely to be in pain.
Fascinating. And also Tylenol, correct me if I'm wrong, but Tylenol has this interesting connection with emotional pain, even though it's
that if you have a broken heart, which is obviously in your brain, that Tylenol can be helpful. And that Advil actually helps females, but it doesn't help males, which why that is. Maybe it's Advil plus estrogen can help with the pain. But I find this just so fascinating, and I'm 71, and I just found when I hit 60, it's my knee, it's my neck, it's my back, it's my hip. I'm like, why am I always in pain? And as I studied it, I'm like, it's mostly the fear of pain that is driving those circuits. And in the book, I talk about the three pain circuits in the brain. There's one called the feeling pathway. It goes through your thalamus, deep in the brain, but also to your sensory cortex. It's like, oh, I hurt. But then it activates the medial, just toward the middle, suffering pathway. So your emotional brain lights up and it begins to smear the pain with dread. And then there's the calming pathway, your prefrontal cortex, and an area deep called the periaqueductal gray that produces opiates. That's not strong, and it's not strong in people who have ADD, and it's not strong in people who have problems with depression, and it's not strong in football players who've hit their head a lot, or soccer players. You can't turn it off. And so it's like, well, how do you get these circuits behaving properly? And then how do you get out of the doom loop? So the star of the book is the doom loop. It's when you start hurting, what your brain then starts doing that perpetuates the pain. And then, well, how do you get out of it?
Yeah, so can you actually think your way out of pain?
You can think your way into it, right? Because the more ants you have, automatic negative thoughts, the thoughts that scare you, make you angry or sad, they increase muscle tension, which then increases pain. And so there's a huge study I talk about in the book on negativity bias. And the more negative you are, the more it activates your emotional brain, where the pain circuit is, and the more it deactivates your thoughtful brain, which is where the calming circuit is. And we published a study on 2,000 people showing negativity is really bad for brain function. And then if you add it builds on other work I put in the book, hope. We did a hope questionnaire on all of our new patients, 7,500 patients. If you have low hope, you have low frontal lobe function, which I find so interesting. If you have low happiness, you have low frontal lobe function. So negativity, low hope, low happiness, more pain because you can't turn it off.
Wow. So anybody can injure themselves, but people with high negative affect, low hope, low happiness, that seems to be a recipe for perpetuating the vicious cycle of chronic pain.
Right. And I think that's why supplements like SAMe and medications like Cymbalta help.
Interesting. Are people that are more stressed out, more prone to this negativity bias, are they also, I wonder, more likely to experience injury?
They're more likely to experience pain if they get injured. Now, we go back to my ADD group. Low activity in their prefrontal cortex, so they're more impulsive. But they also have lower cerebellar activity. Cerebellum means little brain. It's in the back bottom part of the brain. 10% of the brain's volume, but it's half the brain's neurons, and it's involved in coordination. And so if it's a little bit low, your foot's more likely to hit that crack in the sidewalk and you slip than the person whose cerebellum is working well.
Should people, when they're experiencing pain, take painkillers or even antidepressants, or are those drugs just masking the real source of pain?
Well, opiates actually make it worse. So I talk about a study in the book where they looked at white blood cells and the impact of opiates on white blood cells. And initially, it calms down the pain, but after a few weeks, it angers the white blood cells, and now there's more inflammation. So the opiates, short-term benefit, long-term problem. Antidepressants, it wouldn't be the first thing I would do. I'm a huge fan of omega-3 fatty acids. I'm a huge fan of saffron. The spice saffron, 28 randomized controlled trials showing it equally effective to antidepressants, plus a number of studies on arthritis and fibromyalgia showing that it's helpful. Zinc and curcumins. In fact, there's this great big review article. They looked at 192 studies on 17,000 people, looking at what supplements actually helped for depression. Saffron was by far the number one. SAMe was number two. But when you added zinc and curcumins to saffron or to antidepressants, they were much more effective. And it's like, well, why is that? So zinc is in the process of increasing serotonin, making serotonin. Curcumins decrease inflammation. And inflammation is a major cause of virtually every bad thing, including pain and depression.
And antidepressant drugs, they have these pleiotropic effects, right? Like they are also anti-inflammatory, are they not?
For some. But there's a new study that should just rock our country because 25% of adults are on psychiatric medication, that SSRIs increase the vulnerability to dementia. And it's like, well, why is that? Because SSRIs, as you increase serotonin, serotonin is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. It calms things down. But if you start low, you're now causing cognitive problems.
But depression is also a risk factor for dementia. So
In women, it doubles their risk. In men, it quadruples their risk. So it's much harder for men.
so how would you treat it then if you're saying that SSRIs also increase risk for dementia, according to this new research?
Well, see, I'm not a huge fan of, oh, you're depressed, take Lexapro or Prozac or Zoloft. I'm a huge fan of, well, why are you depressed? Is it your thyroid? Is it your microbiome? Did you have a head injury and you need to be in a hyperbaric chamber? Why? So I don't think depression should actually be a diagnosis. It's sort of like chest pain. Nobody gets a diagnosis of chest pain, right? Because it doesn't tell you what's causing it, and it doesn't tell you what to do for it. And because nobody looks at the brain before they give you drugs, we have this insane process of making diagnoses based on symptom clusters with no biological data, exactly like Lincoln was diagnosed with depression in 1840. So on a crusade to change my field in 3 ways. Imaging. If you don't look, you don't know. Stop lying about it, right? We have this whole emperor has no clothes scenario where 340 million prescriptions last year for antidepressants and no one was looking at the brain. It's just insanity.
What is it that you once said on my show that psychiatry is the only specialty that treats, that doesn't actually see the organ that it treats?
Yeah, everybody remembers it. That's the thing. And you got to go, well, why is that? Do we not have good imaging tools? No, we have great imaging tools. It's if we started looking, the whole field would begin to fall apart and it would begin to change. And with 25% of the adult population on psychiatric drugs, that's a huge win for a $500 billion industry. If I'm right, and I'm right, those are the people that are going to lose. And they're not interested in losing. So they call me bad names and like, oh, well, he's a quack. And it's like, because I want to look at your brain and get it healthy so you're less depressed, I'm a quack? I'm not a quack. No.
No, yeah. And also, I mean, recently there was that, a couple years ago now, there was that review that kind of clearly elucidated what experts like yourself have been saying for years, that depression is not caused by some imbalance of neurotransmitters in the brain.
There's no evidence for it. And when you put a large group of people on SSRIs, they work no better than placebo. Now, for some people, they're very effective. For some people, they're a nightmare. And my wife, Tana, had thyroid cancer when she was 25 and got very depressed. And she has sleepy frontal lobes. The doctor put her on Prozac, and all of a sudden, she's making decisions she would have never made before she was depressed. Sort of excitement-seeking, risk-taking, and could have had some very serious negative consequences. And when she went back to the doctor and she said, I'm not me, he raised her dose, at which point she said, nah, I think I'm going to stop this. And when I scanned her, because, right, if I'm going to marry somebody, the first naked part of them I want to see is their brain. And I'm like...
Said nobody ever, other than you. That's hilarious. But yeah, it's crazy the way that drugs change your behaviors and even your view of the world. Like, I mean, what are they? The pill, like contraceptive drugs, like the birth control pills. Birth control changes the type of person that a woman is attracted to. There's all these anecdotal cases where women will get off birth control and they cease to be as attracted to their significant others because they met them when they were on birth control, which skews what you find attractive.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
That is so interesting. And 40% of women go on birth controls get depressed. And so does that mean we don't use birth control? No, but you need to know the risks.
I completely agree. So you're saying basically we need to reorient ourselves, our approach to depression, to trying to understand what is at the root cause, what is causing the depression. Similar to chest pain. If you're having chest pain, the diagnosis, as you said, is not chest pain. It's like, okay, let's find out what's causing the chest pain.
Right. It's a heart attack,
Is it heart? Is it gas? Is it
infection. And I have an acronym I think maybe we've talked about before, Bright Minds. You want to keep your brain healthy or rescue it, you have to prevent or treat the 11 major risk factors. And initially I wrote it as my Alzheimer's prevention model, and then I'm like, oh, this is also depression prevention. This is also pain prevention. This is keep your brain healthy. You have to have healthy blood flow and keep it young. Retirement and aging is hard on your brain. Inflammation, as we talked about, genetics, so important.
There's a viral post. If you go on vacation and your depression lifts, you're not depressed. You're just living a shitty life. What's your take on that?
I like it. And so often, I think of my patients always in 4 big circles. It's like, what's the biology? What's the psychology, how you think? Because our undisciplined minds are causing depression, right? If you believe every stupid thing you think. Our social circle, clearly depression happened more with the pandemic as people got isolated. Now, the COVID also increases inflammation in the brain. I saw that. And then spiritually, and most psychiatrists never talk about that, but do you believe in God? And what's your sense of meaning and purpose? Do you believe we're here by random chance and there's no creative design? You're much more likely to be depressed. Not believing in God triples the risk of depression.
Fascinating.
I think purpose, 58% of young people report a lack of meaning and purpose, which is one of the reasons depression has skyrocketed. And our social media society, where it's about likes and who I'm connected to, and it's all about me, it puts you at greater risk for depression than it's about how can I be of service to other people. Why am I on the planet? And if it's to party, you're much more likely to be depressed than if it is to leave the world a little bit better.
Do you think that chronic pain can become an addiction of sorts?
Well, it certainly gets stuck in your brain. And I opened the book with the story of Sam, who really piqued my interest in chronic pain. He was a police officer. He'd been involved in 2 high-speed chases where he had accidents. I met him after he had 6 back surgeries, and he tried to kill himself. And so he turned on his Jeep in his closed garage, and his wife, who was a light sleeper, found him, opened the garage, and drove him to the emergency room, and I was on call. And I had just started scanning people. I scanned him. It's an area of the brain called the anterior cingulate gyrus, so toward the front, middle, and I think of it as the brain's gear shifter. It allows you to go from thought to thought, move from idea to idea, be flexible, go with the flow. And in people who have OCD, it's overactive. Well, his was on fire. And he didn't have OCD, but his pain was sort of like a little scratch on an old vinyl record. It played itself over and over and over. I hurt. And when I put him on supplements to calm that part of his brain, he said, oh, I just don't think about it anymore, as opposed to looping. And I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. And that's part of that medial pain suffering circuit was overactive.
And was that the doom loop that you described earlier?
Part of the doom loop, yeah. That's like step 2 of the doom loop. So the first step is pain for any reason, and it can be biological, broke your ankle, it could be psychological, got fired, it can be social, you had a breakup, or it can be spiritual. I grew up Roman Catholic, and that whole pedophile scandal that went on and on. I mean, that's a moral pain. That's a moral injury. So pain for any reason, which then activates the suffering circuit, leads to an invasion of automatic negative thoughts that then goes to nervous tension, then leads to bad habits, and it just cycles. More pain, more suffering activation, more ants, and so on. So to get out of it, it's the healing loop. It's always when you have pain, be curious about it. So I teach my patients every day, we win or we learn, and we're curious and we're never furious. So, I hurt. What did I do? What did I eat? How am I sleeping? Am I really pissed off at someone? And then we do things to calm the suffering circuit. Do you know havening? Has anyone ever taught you havening? It's so cool. It was developed by a doctor in New York called Ron Rudin. It's like whenever you're upset, engage in some sort of bilateral hemisphere stimulation, because they found that actually calms activity in the amygdala, which is, setting up that fear pathway. And so it's either rubbing your hands like this, or my favorite is just grabbing your shoulders and stroking down. And so whenever you're triggered, so many people, their pain or they're really upset, they'll drink to calm themselves down, or they'll smoke pot to calm themselves down, or they'll do mushrooms to calm themselves down. And I'm like, short-term fix that's going to create a long-term problem. So I'll give you an example of how this works. About 5 years ago, my dad died right at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was awful. And a couple of days later, I'm over at his house, and I'm going through papers for my mom, and somebody put a picture of my dead father in a random stack of papers. So dead dad in the mortuary, and it just like hit me in the face. And I was so angry and so upset. It's like, what idiot would do that? And I just started looping on it, and I was upset the whole day. Now I'm grieving, but I remember going home and going, why are you still thinking about this? And it's like, you treat people who have this problem. What would you do? And I'm like, having it. So I sat in a chair and I thought about the picture. And this is really important. For the first 30 seconds, go into what's bothering you. Don't block it. And so I'm really angry. I see the picture. And then about 30 seconds into it, shift your mind and go somewhere in your imagination you love. So for me, it's the beach. So I just go to the beach and see how pretty it is, and it's sunset and it's warm. And I do that for 90 seconds. And then I'm like, well, how am I feeling? And I actually did that process 4 times. We rate things like 0 to 10, how upsetting is it? It was 10. I mean, I was so upset. And after one 2-minute episode, it's a 2. And then it's gone. And then I fall in love with the picture because it's the last picture of my dad on earth. And so it's don't block the pain. Don't block the anxiety. Don't block the trauma. It's like go into it, but then do the havening, and you find it just dissipates. So I have an NBA player. He did my podcast, Julius Randle, and I taught him havening. So if he gets a bad call or he misses a shot, you just see him on the sidelines doing this.
Is it related in any way to EMDR?
It's absolutely related to EMDR, because EMDR, eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing, have you bring up the trauma, why get your eyes to go back and forth, and then all of a sudden it doesn't bother you anymore. But the problem is people avoid their feelings by creating more problems for themselves rather than go in and process them. Let your brain process it, and don't be afraid of them. So many people are afraid, and it's like, all right, what are you afraid of? Well, maybe I did something really bad. Maybe not. But let's find out.
Yeah.
Right? Know the truth. The truth will set you free.
Curiosity. No, I think that's so important. What would you say are the biggest lifestyle levers when it comes to reducing negative affect thereby reducing the tendency to ruminate on pain as one is experiencing it?
See your mind as something that can be disciplined. Like you can get bigger biceps if you work them. You can have a stronger mind that helps you rather than just believe every stupid thing you think, right? Can you imagine with all the education we both have, there was not one class on how to manage your mind, right? That's incredibly stupid. That second graders should learn not to believe every stupid thing they think. I have a children's book called Captain Snout and the Superpower Questions. He's an anteater. Why an anteater? Because you got to eat the ants, right? You got to kill the ants. I think whenever you feel sad, mad, nervous, or out of control, write down what you're thinking. And then just ask yourself if it's true. The pain ants, there's 9 different species of ants, like all or nothing ants, where things are all good or all bad. Just the bad ants, where you're just focused on what's wrong rather than right. The guilt-beating ants, should, must, ought, have to. The fortune-telling ants, that's where you're predicting, oh my God, I'm going to be paralyzed, or I'm always going to be in pain. I'm never going to be able to make love to my wife. I'm never going to be able to exercise. I mean, that fortune-telling ant just drives pain. And you don't have to believe every stupid thing you think. So it's literally training your mind. And one of my favorite techniques is give your mind a name so that you can gain psychological distance. And you begin to watch your thoughts rather than attach to your thoughts. It's so helpful. And I think one of the most interesting parts of the book is repressed rage, and how repressed rage is a major cause of pain. And pain often happens to good people. John Sarno called them goodists. And it's because they can't express the rage that they feel. And rage often comes from very early on. You know, when we're born, we bond, we want to bond, we have to bond because they keep us alive, they feed us, they clothe us, they shelter us. And then something bad happens in a family, divorce, somebody loses their job, the dad's a drinker or mom's a drinker, and the child develops rage because of the pain. But they can't express it because they're dependent on these people. But the fact that they have it, they feel guilty about it, and they turn the rage on themselves. And they block it, but that rage comes to live in them, and it's expressed often through pain. So what happened? You said 10 years?
Yeah.
Tell me.
Well, I had chronic low back pain. And I read all the John Sarno. Didn't he write a book on chronic back pain? How it's like all in your head. For me, it wasn't in my head. It was literally, I had a severely degenerated L5S1 disc. And I tried all the things, all the conservative techniques, the chiropractic. I even tried acupuncture once. Nothing worked. And so I, about 8 months ago, I had spine surgery. I had an artificial disc replacement. And it changed my life. So I was in chronic pain for 10 years. And for the past 8 months, knock on wood that it persists, you know. But yeah, I haven't had chronic pain. So.
And the surgery made a huge difference.
Huge difference.
What I would argue is, and just what you did, is do the other things first, because I'm 71, 80% of people my age have abnormal backs. They have collapsed discs, they have arthritis, they have like monster problems. 80% who have no pain at all. And so people see the MRI. The MRI all by itself increases the doom loop. And so it's just important to know a lot of people have those things. But if you do these things and it's not helpful, surgery can totally be an important step like it was for you.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes there's this, you get the sense that there's this perception that some believe that pain is, quote unquote, all in your head, which can be very frustrating when you're somebody suffering from chronic pain. Like I heard that at time, over more than once. I can't count how many times, but over the course of 10 years, people had suggested that maybe it's like a psychosomatic thing. Is it ever all in your head, or is there always like a
sometimes it is all in
component?
your head. Sometimes it is. I mean, psychosomatic, people sort of diminish that, but it's a real thing. If you're, and I want you to think not in your head, but in your brain. It's in the circuitry of your brain, which obviously you didn't make up for some secondary gain, right? There was probably no big secondary gain to the 10 years of pain, right?
Yeah, it certainly wasn't for attention.
You weren't getting the kind of attention you wanted right. for that. But sometimes when people are able to express the rage, and have you ever heard of ISTDP?
No.
It's a fascinating psychotherapy. It's called intensive short-term dynamic psychotherapy. And when I was working on my book and loved John Sarno's stuff and okay, repressed rage. Well, how do I help my patients get the repressed rage out? He doesn't do a good job with that. And I'm like, intensive short-term, it's a rage therapy. It's like, feel what you're feeling. And if that feeling could come up and out of your body, well, where would it go? And I actually do it in combination with EMDR. And so in my EMDR sessions, people die. I mean, oh no. Like if somebody had been sexually abused, that sexual abuser in their head, right, gets torn to shed, and the person feels so much freedom, so much relief afterwards. So it's not bottling the feelings that you have.
Well, yeah. I mean, I definitely recognize that had my diet not been what it has been for the past decade or so, if I hadn't been so diligent about prioritizing sleep and exercise and keeping levels of inflammation in my body low, the pain could have been worse. And we know that psychological states, whether we're talking about loneliness or chronic stress, can raise elevation in the body, can have like an inflammatory effect. And so to me, yeah, it makes perfect sense that, certain emotions might have contributed at times to it feeling worse or it feeling more manageable. But I tend to not be prone to negative affect. I tend to be high in hope. I tend to be high in happiness. So maybe I was, I had a bit of a life raft in that regard. But for many people that have high negativity bias, low hope, low happiness, then I can understand where, were they to be in my shoes, then the pain would be even worse.
And they would have got the surgery much faster, and they may have relied on opiates much more because they just didn't have the tools. I found I had to teach Pollyanna. So I live with Pollyanna in my head. My wife will tell you Pollyanna is my favorite movie. I make the grandkids watch it with me. I play the glad game, whatever situation I'm in. What is there to be glad about? In fact, this morning there was so much traffic because I had to do another podcast before this one. I spent 2.5 hours in traffic. And I'm like, so what is there to be glad about? In my writing in this book, I talk about the dragons from the past, the dragons that breathe fire on your emotional brain. And one of the dragons is the death dragon, because people are afraid of dying. And to counteract the death dragon, one of the exercises is write down 10 good things about dying. And one good thing about dying for me is I never have to deal with LA traffic again. So I tend to be that sort of very positive person. But what I realized, that also can increase pain because it's then I don't admit to how furious I really am that I'm still fighting this fight with my colleagues after 35 years and almost 300,000 brain scans. It's like, if you don't look, you don't know. Why are you guys still lying about it? Right? That could totally be part of my pain. It's like, no, I need to be pissed off about that, and I need to do what I can do about it. But I don't have to live with it, right?
Yeah.
You just have to have a mechanism to get the anger out. And in the book, I talk about this thing called emotional freedom journaling, where every 5 years, like make a page for every 5 years, on the left side, what awesome things happened in your life, and on the right side, what awful things happened in your life, and really write about how they made you feel. And that way you begin to see, where's the work? Where do I need to work?
What's the one mistake that people make that keeps them stuck in pain? Like if there's one mistake.
That they're hopeless about it. They don't believe they have any agency. And ultimately, the last part of the relief healing loop is hope. And hope just means tomorrow can be better and I have a role in it. And so it's like, curious, not furious. What is it I can do today to make things better? Like, I think everybody that has chronic pain should do an elimination diet for at least 3 weeks.
What does that look like?
Eliminate gluten, dairy, corn, soy, artificial dyes, and sweeteners. And just for 3 or 4 weeks, do that. I have one patient who had 3 suicide attempts. He was chronically in pain, and he came to see me. His brain wasn't healthy, and I'm like, "You've never done this." He's had 3 courses of ECT. I'm like, "Let's just do an elimination diet." And within 3 weeks, he's like, "Oh my God, Dr. Amen, I'm so much better."
Wow.
And then I'm like, "Well, so let's see if we can find the culprit. Add back gluten." Nothing happened. Add back dairy. Nothing happened. Add back corn. 20 minutes, he said, I had a vision of a gun in my mouth pulling the trigger.
Whoa.
Time to break up with corn. And he's like, I love corn. I said, but it doesn't love you back. It's like you're in this abusive relationship. So I think everybody in chronic pain should do that. And I think a lot of it is also driven by an unhealthy microbiome, because what do NSAIDs do? Like Advil, they damage your gut. And so getting your gut healthy will help boost your immune system and help calm down the chronic inflammation you have.
Yeah, so true. Wow, the elimination diet. It's, people underappreciate the role that diet can play in modulating inflammation, the role that gut health has in modulating inflammation, how that can ultimately impact the pain that they're experiencing.
Well, and if your inflammation's high, you hurt more. Emotionally, that's important, and physically.
What are some foundational supplements that might help? Because, we like to take a food-focused approach on the podcast, but not everybody is, we live in an era defined in many ways, at least food-wise, by a predominance of ultra-processed foods. 60% of the calories that your average American ingests comes from ultra-processed foods. We're, of course, chronically stressed, underslept. But when it comes to supplementing one's diet, are there any heavy hitters that you would say are worth considering?
Well, I think the ones that have good evidence for them are omega-3 fatty acids. I did the big NFL study when the NFL was sort of blind and had a problem with traumatic brain injury in football. And as part of our rehabilitation program, high-dose omega-3s, many of them stopped whatever pain medication they were on. So omega-3 fatty acids, curcumin from turmeric, A-level scientific evidence, and it also helps with depression, interesting. SAMe, huge fan of SAMe, but if you use S-adenosylmethionine or SAMe, add betaine to it, or trimethylglycine, it makes it work better, faster. I gave it to someone last week, and he said the next day he noticed his energy and mental clarity was better. Saffron, I'm a huge fan of saffron. 30 milligrams.
Of saffron?
Saffron.
Now, the spice saffron, everybody knows it to be expensive. Is a 30 milligram, I mean, like, I don't even know.
It's not expensive.
It's not.
The supplement, not expensive. And I had Khloe Kardashian, I was on her podcast. I saw her a couple of years ago for their show. And then we hadn't really talked. And then on her podcast, she holds up my bottle of Happy Saffron that I make. So I've been taking this for 3 years, and just like, sales were crazy. But I've taken it literally for 6 years. Why? 28 randomized controlled trials showing it's equally effective to antidepressants. But as opposed to antidepressants that decrease sexual function, not a fan of that. It increased sexual function. So that's what really got my peak, is people became more interested, had better function. And there are 5 studies with Alzheimer's disease showing it is as effective as Aricept or donazepam. And I'm like, mood, memory, and sex. I think I'm going to take that.
Wow. No, sounds definitely worth considering. What happens to the brain when pain finally goes away?
Well, I think those circuits rebalance themselves. So think of it almost as neuroplasticity gone wrong. And most people think of neuroplasticity as a good thing, but it's just a thing. Whatever your brain does over and over again, it will make circuits for those, and it'll keep doing that. So if you've been in pain and you've been afraid of the pain, it is creating its own feedback loop to stay that way. So you have to find ways to interrupt it. It's like if you're negative, you're going to be negative. And if you train yourself to be more positive, and it takes training, you'll be more positive.
What about the role of sleep? I know that there are some studies that, at least in the setting of low back pain and circadian disruption more broadly, but that sleep disruption can actually increase the sensation of pain.
Absolutely does. And that's one of the things that first responders, who they're chronic sleep disruption because of the shift work they do, they're going to have more pain. Do you know first responders have a 40% increased risk of suicide? This is horrifying.
Wow.
We have a foundation, Change Your Brain Foundation, that after the LA fires, we gave away 100 evaluations for firefighters, and they have just some of the most damaged brains. But they can get better, right? Just like our NFL players, they can be better.
What are the biggest enemies to brain health today?
Apathy, right? It's the only organ we don't screen, right? I mean, I know how interested you are in Alzheimer's disease. Shouldn't everybody really be scanned by the time they're 50? And if you have one of the E4 genes, you probably should be scanned at 40. I think everybody should know their E4, their E status, right? The apolipoprotein. E2, 3, or 4. 4 increases your risk 250%. If you have 2 4s, it's 1,000%. And if you have one of the E4 genes, don't play a contact sport, right? Golf is good. Tennis is terrific. Table tennis, the world's best sport. I did a podcast recently with Tim Tebow, and he has 2 E4s, and he played football, which meant we have to be serious about prevention, right? It's not a death sentence, but it should be a wake-up call.
I mean, obviously you can't share private medical information, but is there a specific approach that you've taken with your 4/4 carriers? Because I certainly have some that listen to the show.
Oh, you bet. And we did it on our podcast, so it's all public knowledge. But it's brain envy, got to care about it. It's like, okay, this is a risk for you. A train is going to hit you, so let's get out of the way of it. And then avoid anything that hurts your brain. drugs, alcohol. So bright minds, low blood flow, hypertension, diabetes, not sleeping, and then do things every day that helps. And for the 4-4s, exercise has been shown to be really helpful for it, because the E4 gene, the risk factor it's really giving you is a cardiovascular risk factor. And so making sure you're doing things to increase blood flow and not decrease blood flow.
Yeah, what would decrease blood flow?
So hypertension, nicotine, excessive caffeine, marijuana, alcohol, being overweight, being sedentary. It's like, no, you don't want any of that. And it's like, well, I can't live without my caffeine. Well, have a cup or two and then figure out why you can't live without it. Is it because you're staying up too late playing video games, or binge watching Netflix, or bringing your phone to bed and having that blue light turn off the melatonin production? It's like, why? And it's always this curious, not furious.
Yeah.
Win or learn. But that, to me, I screen all of my patients for that gene, because it's like, if you have it, I just want you to be serious. How much do you love yourself and your family, right? I never want to be a burden to my family, which means I should be on an Alzheimer's prevention program. The chronic stress it puts their loved ones under.
As a brain health expert, what's your take on nicotine lip pouches like Zins?
I hate it. It's like, no, because it's addictive. I did a post, I think it got like 8 million views, on what's the most addictive substance. It's nicotine. So I'm not a fan. It's like, yeah, it'll give you a short-term boost. I'm a huge fan, though, of paraxanthine. Do you know paraxanthine?
It's a coffee metabolite.
It's a caffeine metabolite. And it doesn't decrease blood flow. It doesn't keep you up. It's not a diuretic, so it doesn't make you pee. It doesn't make you anxious. It just gives you this sort of nice level energy. And so if I have a day where I'm tired and I want to get work done, I make something called Peak Energy, and it's just great.
Does it still give you that stimulant boost that people drink coffee for?
It gives you the focus, but not the jitters.
Very interesting. Yeah, the nicotine thing, it's, I think, low dose, you get this boost in focus, but it's not good for you. Like, I think that the cardiovascular downsides are definitely worth considering. And of course, it's highly addictive. So, definitely.
Yeah, once you start, it's just the hardest thing for me to get my patients to stop.
What do you recommend for migraines?
First thing, and I write about this in the book, is Irlen syndrome. Is see if you have Irlen syndrome. Helen Irlen was a school psychologist in the late 80s. Then she realized that many people who had headaches, but also ADD, anxiety, and learning problems, had visual processing problems, that certain colors of the light spectrum angered or agitated the pain circuits in their brain. And I actually found one of the pain circuits is the insular cortex. Is when I see that up, I'm like, I'm going to screen you for this. And the treatment is colored filtered lenses. Whether, I don't know if you've seen Dave Asprey wearing the yellow lenses or his red lenses. It's because he has Irlen syndrome. I also think vitamin B2, 400 milligrams. I think about 10% of my migraine patients, they don't have migraines anymore if they just supplement with
Is that riboflavin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've heard about the preventative potential for that. Do you have any thoughts on triptans? I had a migraine last night and I took 25 milligrams of sumatriptan.
Was it helpful?
It tends to be helpful for me, yes. They do tend to be helpful. And I don't take them often at all, like once every, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, like at the most. But yeah, when I am in the midst of a migraine, it does have a very effective abortive effect for me.
Yeah, I think it's safe and it's helpful.
Yeah, better in my
But if you're having them, the question is why.
Right.
And so part of the healing loop is recognize the triggers. So I always get curious about it. You know, is it the allergies? Is it some stress in your life? Is it what you ate? What is it?
Yeah.
Because there's something there to hunt down.
Do you think that most doctors are treating pain all wrong?
Yes. And I think many doctors scare patients into surgeries. And I think we're more careful with opiates now, but 15 years ago, we're like, oh, no, these aren't addictive, and ruined a lot of people.
It's crazy the degree of addiction that you see in this country. There was like recently, it was for the first time in a very long time, there was a new FDA approved pain drug to hit the market that was not an opiate. I don't know anything about it. Did that pop onto your radar at all? Yeah, it's very interesting. I've been lucky in that I've never really needed any of those kinds of drugs, even with my 10 years of chronic back pain, but
so it sounds like you had a healthy fear of them.
Yes. Yeah. I also don't have an addictive personality. I think that's and please, let me know if you agree or disagree, but I think that that one's disposition to addiction it's highly individual.
No, I think that's true, and there's clearly a genetic component to it. If you have addiction in your family, you should use that as a roadmap to be afraid of substances.
Yeah. Well, this is super important stuff. So I'm very glad that you wrote the book. And as somebody who experienced chronic pain for many years, I'm very excited to dive into it and learn more. And yeah, it's something that, I don't wish surgery on anybody. It's something that changed my life, but there is obviously a lot that can be done to mitigate chronic pain, and I think that the brain aspect is something that is, I think for many people, underappreciated. So thank you for writing this.
It's so great to see you.
Yeah.
Thank you for helping me spread this work.
No, of course. Well, thank you guys for listening. We've done a number of episodes with Dr. Amen on the show in the past. We've covered, myriad angles from which to fortify and protect your brain as you age. We've covered nutritional psychiatry. We've covered dementia prevention. So definitely check out the backlog of episodes that we've got with Dr. Amen. And don't forget to share this episode with friends and loved ones who may benefit from it. And I will catch you on the next episode. Peace, everybody. Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.